The envelope was handed to Bruce Lee at exactly 9:47 p.m. He almost did not take it. The awards ceremony was in full swing. Cameras everywhere. Journalists circling. Studio executives waiting to shake his hand. He had no time for fan mail. But something about the messenger made him stop. A young woman in a wheelchair. Both legs missing below the knee. Her face marked with burn scars that told a story of unimaginable pain. She held out the envelope with trembling hands. "Please," she said. "It is from my brother. He wanted you to read it tonight." Bruce looked at the envelope, then at the woman, then back at the envelope. "Where is your brother?" The woman's eyes filled with tears. "He could not be here. He asked me to come in his place." Something in her voice, something in the way she said could not instead of did not want to. Bruce understood. He took the envelope. What he read in the next 3 minutes would bring the entire awards ceremony to a standstill. And 400 people would witness something they would remember for the rest of their lives. Hong Kong, November 1972. The Golden Horse Awards. This was the most prestigious film awards ceremony in Chinese cinema. Directors, actors, producers, the elite of the industry gathered every year to celebrate excellence. Bruce Lee had been nominated for Best Actor. Fist of Fury had been a phenomenon. His performance as Chun Jun had captivated audiences across Asia. But Bruce was uncomfortable. He did not like award ceremonies. The politics, the false smiles, the endless handshaking and small talk. He preferred training, creating, moving. Linda had convinced him to come. "This matters," she had said. "Not for your ego, for what you represent. Every Chinese actor who comes after you will benefit from your presence here tonight." So Bruce had put on his tuxedo. He had smiled for the cameras. He had played the role of Bruce Lee, movie star. But inside, he was counting the minutes until he could leave. The ceremony had been proceeding normally. Awards for cinematography, for editing, for music, the usual speeches, the usual applause. Bruce sat at table 3, near the front, surrounded by studio executives and co-stars. He applauded when appropriate. He smiled when cameras pointed his way. And then the young woman in the wheelchair appeared. She had somehow made it past security, somehow navigated through the crowded ballroom. Somehow reached table 3 without anyone stopping her. Later, witnesses would say she moved with such determination that no one dared intervene, as if she was on a mission that could not be denied. "Mr. Lee," she said, her voice cutting through the ambient noise. "My name is Mei Lin. I have come from Taipei. I have traveled for 3 days to give you this." Bruce turned to face her, saw the wheelchair, the missing legs, the burn scars, and he saw something else. Courage. This woman had overcome extraordinary obstacles just to deliver an envelope. Whatever was inside, it mattered more than anything else in her life. "Please," Mei Lin said again. "It is from my brother. He wanted you to read it tonight." Bruce took the envelope. The commotion had attracted attention. People at nearby tables were watching. A few journalists had noticed something unusual happening. Bruce looked at Linda. She nodded slightly. "Read it." He opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, covered in careful handwriting. The letters were uneven, as if written by someone with limited control of their hands. But every word was legible. Every sentence was clear. And what those sentences said would change Bruce Lee forever. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. The letter began simply. "Dear Mr. Lee, my name is Chen Wei. I am 23 years old. By the time you read this letter, I will be gone." Bruce stopped breathing for a moment. He looked up at Mei Lin. "Your brother." Mei Lin nodded, tears streaming down her face. 3 days ago, the doctors said his body finally gave up. But his spirit, Mr. Lee, his spirit never gave up. Because of you. Bruce looked back at the letter. "I was a soldier in Vietnam. I served with the Republic of China forces as an advisor. 18 months ago, our position was overrun. A grenade landed at my feet. I survived, but I lost both my arms below the elbow. My face was burned beyond recognition. My lungs were damaged by the explosion. The doctors gave me 6 months to live. They were wrong. I have survived 18 months. Because of you." Bruce's hands were trembling now. He continued reading. "When I returned from Vietnam, I wanted to die. I had been a martial artist before the war. I had trained in Kung Fu since I was 8 years old. My body was my identity. My skills were my pride. And then, in 1 second, everything was gone. I could not train. I could not fight. I could not even feed myself. I was a burden to my family, a monster to children who saw my face. A failure in my own eyes. I had decided to end it. I had written notes to my parents, to my sister. I had made my peace. And then my sister brought me to a cinema. She said there was a new film I needed to see. A kung fu film. I told her I could not watch kung fu anymore. It was too painful. She insisted. The film was The Big Boss. Bruce's eyes blurred with tears. He blinked them away. Continued reading. Mr. Lee, I cannot explain what happened in that cinema. I watched you move, and something inside me woke up. Not envy. Not bitterness. Something else. Hope. You moved like water. You adapted to every situation. You used what you had. You did not follow the rigid patterns I had been taught. You created something new. And I thought, if Bruce Lee can create a new way of fighting, maybe I can create a new way of living. I started training the next day. Not my arms. I did not have arms. I trained what I had. My legs. My core. My breath. My mind. I could not punch. So I learned to kick in new ways. I could not grab. So I learned to trap with my legs. I could not hold a weapon. So I learned to make my entire body a weapon. For 18 months, I trained every day. Some days I could barely breathe. Some days the pain was unbearable. But every day, I thought of you. I thought of how you created Jeet Kune Do. How you rejected limitations. How you said having no limitation as limitation. I created my own style. I call it No Arms Way. It sounds like a joke. But it is not a joke. It is my life. Bruce had to stop reading. The tears were falling freely now. He did not care who was watching. Linda put her hand on his arm. He took a breath. Continued. Mr. Lee, I will not live to see you in person. My body is failing. The doctors say days, not weeks. But I wanted you to know what you gave me. You gave me 18 months I was not supposed to have. You gave me a purpose when I had none. You gave me proof that limitations exist only in the mind. I am dying. But I am dying as a martial artist. As a creator. As a man who refused to surrender. That is your gift to me. I have asked my sister to deliver this letter on the night of the Golden Horse Awards. I want you to read it surrounded by people who celebrate cinema. Because cinema saved my life. Your cinema. Your art. Your philosophy. If I could say one thing to you in person, it would be this. Thank you for showing me that water can flow through any crack. That a man without arms can still be a warrior. That the spirit is the only weapon that truly matters. I am ready now. Ready to become water one final time. Ready to flow beyond this body into whatever comes next. I am not afraid. Because you taught me that fear is a limitation. And I no longer accept limitations. With eternal gratitude. Chen Wei. Below the signature was a date. 3 days ago. The day Chen Wei had died. And below the date, a final line. P.S. I have enclosed a photograph. This is what you gave me, Mr. Lee. This is what hope looks like. Bruce reached into the envelope. His fingers found a photograph. He pulled it out. And his heart stopped. The photograph showed a young man with no arms and a badly scarred face. He was standing in a training hall, balanced on one leg, the other leg extended in a perfect side kick. His eyes were closed. His expression was peaceful. His body was positioned with the precision of a master. On the wall behind him was a poster of Bruce Lee. And on the young man's scarred face was a smile. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. Bruce Lee stood up. The entire ballroom noticed. Conversations stopped. Cameras turned. Bruce Lee was standing in the middle of an awards ceremony, tears streaming down his face, holding a photograph. Linda stood with him. She had read enough of the letter over his shoulder to understand. Mei Lin remained in her wheelchair, watching. And then Bruce did something that no one expected. He walked to the stage. Not because he was called. Not because it was his turn. He simply walked to the stage and took the microphone. The host tried to intervene. Mr. Lee, we are in the middle of. Bruce held up his hand. The host fell silent. The entire ballroom was watching now. 400 of the most powerful people in Chinese cinema. Completely silent. Completely focused on Bruce Lee. I need to read something, Bruce said into the microphone. His voice was thick with emotion, but steady. I need all of you to hear this. And then Bruce Lee read Chen Wei's letter. Every word. Out loud. To the entire room. He read about the soldier who lost his arms. About the man who wanted to die. About the film that gave him hope. About the new martial art created from nothing. He read about water flowing through cracks. About limitations that exist only in the mind. About the spirit as the only weapon that matters. When he finished reading, the room was weeping. Studio executives in $1,000 suits, wiping their eyes with napkins. Actresses with perfect makeup, letting mascara run down their cheeks. Directors who had seen everything, sitting in stunned silence. Bruce held up the photograph. "This," he said, "is Chen Wei. He died 3 days ago. He was 23 years old. He had no arms. He had 18 months to live. And he spent those 18 months becoming a martial artist." He looked around the room. "We are here tonight to give awards. To celebrate ourselves. To pat each other on the back and feel important." His voice hardened. "But this is what matters. This letter. This photograph. This man who refused to give up." He pointed at the audience. "How many of you have both arms? How many of you have perfect health? How many of you have unlimited time?" Silence. "And how many of you are still making excuses?" The question hung in the air. Chen Wei had nothing. Nothing but his spirit. And he created something extraordinary. He created a new martial art. He created hope from despair. He created meaning from meaninglessness. Bruce's voice softened. "I did not know Chen Wei. I never met him. But he is more of a martial artist than I will ever be. Because he understood something that I am still learning." He paused. "The body is temporary. The spirit is eternal. And the greatest fight is not against an opponent. It is against the voice inside us that says we cannot." Bruce looked at Mei Lin, still in her wheelchair, near table 3. "Chen Wei won that fight. He died victorious. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of his courage." He bowed deeply toward Mei Lin. "Thank you for bringing me his letter. Thank you for making this journey. Tell your parents that their son was a warrior, a teacher, a master." Mei Lin was sobbing now, but she was also smiling. The room exploded in applause. Not polite applause. Not obligatory acknowledgement. Something deeper. Something real. 400 people rose to their feet. Clapping. Crying. Transformed. They had come to an awards show. They were leaving with something far more valuable. A reminder of what really matters. Bruce Lee walked off the stage. He did not return to table 3. He walked directly to Mei Lin. He knelt beside her wheelchair. Took her scarred hands in his. "I want to learn your brother's style," he said quietly. "I want to understand No Arms Way. Will you teach me what he taught you?" Mei Lin looked at him in disbelief. "You want to learn from him?" Bruce nodded. "He created something I never could. I want to honor it. I want to preserve it. I want the world to know what Chen Wei accomplished." Mei Lin's tears flowed freely. "I have his notebooks, his drawings, videos of his training. Then we have work to do." Bruce Lee spent the next 3 days in Taipei with Mei Lin and her family. He studied Chen Wei's notebooks. He watched the training videos. He learned the principles of No Arms Way. And he documented everything. The techniques Chen Wei developed were extraordinary. Kicks that compensated for the lack of grabbing. Balance methods that used the core differently. Breathing patterns that maximized efficiency. But more than the techniques, Bruce was moved by the philosophy. Chen Wei had written extensively about adaptation. About using what you have instead of mourning what you lost. About the mind as the true battlefield. "This is Jeet Kune Do," Bruce told Linda after reading the notebooks. "This is everything I have been teaching." But Chen Wei discovered it through suffering I cannot imagine. He found these truths through pain, not through philosophy. Linda looked at him. "What will you do with it?" Bruce was quiet for a moment. "I will share it. I will make sure Chen Wei's name is remembered. I will include his principles in my teaching." He paused. "And I will never complain about my limitations again." The Golden Horse Awards continued that night without Bruce Lee. He won Best Actor. Someone accepted the award on his behalf. But Bruce Lee was already gone. Already in Taipei. Already learning from a dead soldier who had never given up. The story of that night spread quickly. By the next morning, every newspaper in Hong Kong was reporting what happened. Bruce Lee interrupts award ceremony to read dying soldier's letter. The letter itself was published. Chen Wei's photograph appeared on front pages across Asia. And something shifted. People who had been struggling found new hope. People who had given up reconsidered. People who thought their limitations defined them saw proof that they were wrong. Chen Wei became a symbol, not just of martial arts, of human potential, of the refusal to surrender. Bruce Lee never stopped talking about Chen Wei. In interviews, in teaching, in private conversations. "This man taught me," Bruce would say, "not in a dojo, not in person, through a letter and a photograph. He taught me that I had been taking too much for granted, that my body, my health, my abilities were gifts I did not appreciate. He taught me humility." Bruce Lee died 8 months after that awards ceremony. Among his personal effects was Chen Wei's letter, folded carefully, worn from reading. And the photograph. The young man with no arms, balanced in a perfect side kick, smiling. Linda donated both to the Bruce Lee Foundation. They remain in the collection today. When visitors ask about them, the staff tells the story of the Golden Horse Awards, of the woman in the wheelchair, of the letter that stopped the ceremony, of the soldier who became a master. And they tell the lesson Chen Wei taught Bruce Lee, that limitations exist only in the mind, that the spirit is the only weapon that truly matters, that water can flow through any crack, even the cracks in our own souls. November 1972. Hong Kong. The Golden Horse Awards. 400 witnesses. One letter. One photograph. One soldier who refused to surrender. And one lesson that changed everything. Be water. Not because it is easy, because it is necessary. This story is a work of fiction inspired by real-life themes.